What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Social Media Mindset. And I have a fellow author with me today. And it feels so cool to say that because that means I'm an author and it's still so new. I'm super pumped about it. Guys, I just want to read. I'm going to tell you about Chris in a second, but I want to read what someone else said about you on the top of your book. Steve said, "This book made me cringe. It's written in blood. Chris Felton fearlessly exposes his darkest hours as a man seeking self-redemption. I couldn't put it down." What an unbelievable thing to have said about something you did. And so, Chris, you have 24 years in the financial services industry, and as an entrepreneur, you talk about in the book how you were multiple six figures deep into debt, and now you're a seven-figure earner in business as an entrepreneur. Your life has done a complete 180. And I am just pumped, man, to have you on the show to talk through Think and Grow You. That's the title of the book. And so, man, welcome to the show.
Kyle, awesome being here, man. Congratulations on kicking ass with your book and
Thank you.
All that good stuff, dude. You're a freaking rock star. And I'm grateful that we met and excited to be on here today. Yeah.
I am too. And so I want to start here. Take us through the darkest moment and kind of where you talk about it in the book, but I want you to talk about it the way you want to talk about it. Talk us through kind of that darkest moment where like the realization happened that like, wait a second, in all of my bad moments, the only common denominator that exists is me.
Yeah.
What a sobering reality.
Yeah, no, I left a safe corporate career behind 2000 as a CPA. I was climbing the corporate ladder and shooting to become partner in what was then the largest accounting firm in the world at that time. And I left that behind. I started a financial services entrepreneurial business from scratch with my business partners. And that's 200 plus licensed agents. We got about 30,000 clients spread out across the United States. But I was horrible. I was a dumbass. I mean, I spent first 2 years talking people out of doing business with me, but just had some desire and some will to win. And my first marriage was not a good one. We had two amazing kids who are now 21 and 18, which is unbelievable.
Wow.
But had really bad money beliefs and money mindset. And then went through a very expensive and painful divorce. And my kids were 3 years old and 1 month old. And they moved from Denver, Colorado to Atlanta, Georgia. And then I met my second and last wife and current wife, Marlo. She seduced me. And in my weakest moment, nobody believes that.
Is that the word? Would she use that word?
Dude, she's just not on any of this stuff. We got so many podcasts going. She doesn't listen anymore. So she can't defend herself. But I said, she ran into this big pile of hotness here, Kyle, and she just couldn't resist.
I believe it.
Yeah,
I believe it.
My wife's really hot. And anyway, she's got eye problems. Anyway, but she walked into what she thought was, a successful guy, because I don't know if you've ever tried to BS people with how successful you look or are or whatever. And she bought it. But she didn't realize that I had $250,000 of credit card debt because I had to pay my ex-wife. I signed a stupid office lease that I couldn't afford. I'm a financial services entrepreneur in the middle of the Great Recession. And my darkest moment was I had to pay my ex-wife at the beginning of every month, $5,200 in alimony and child support, which is a lot of money now. And it was a heck of a lot of money then because I was totally broke. And I had run out of options. And at this point, the only good financial decision I made was I handed the financial reins of everything over to my wife. Best financial decision I ever made. But I had to come home, and it was a real problem because I didn't have the money to pay my ex-wife. And because I was out of options, my only option, Kyle, was my wife, Marlo, who had a separate savings account separate from our marriage because she was smart enough not to commingle money with a broke dude.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's ever happened in the history of mankind, but I came home and attempted to convince my wife to give me the money to pay my ex-wife.
Wow. How'd that go?
We call it the purse throwing incident. So she picks up her 20-pound purse. Why are women's purses so freaking huge?
For moments like this,
And she had horrible, and still has horrible hand-eye coordination. So she luckily would be staring at me, but she would throw it in a completely different direction. But literally this purse flew over my head, splattered everywhere. She picked it up. She threw it at me 3 times and just lost it. And we had the fight of our lives. And then I was like, well, why are we still together? And then it was total silence. And so she went upstairs for the rest of the night to contemplate that question. And then there I was. And like you said, I realized that the common theme to everything going wrung in my life was me.
And so that was it that night, that realization?
Yeah. It was that night. I literally saw dominoes falling in my life. I hadn't seen my kids in months. Cause I just didn't have the money to go see them. The stress, it was that night that I realized that my ex-wife really never even had a chance.
Wow.
Because I was going to blow that thing up no matter what. And it was right there. And I'm like going, dude, my way's not working. And my way was the way of what we call the masses or the middle class. And I call it hopium. It's hoping the outside world will change while I insist on remaining the same. And it's rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic. And that's what I was doing. And it was just right there in that moment. I said I had to change. And then the end of the story here is the next day we came together, and to my wife's immense credit, in her time of really horrendous stress and pain, she focused on what she loved about me. And she said, I don't want to live without that. And so it was really her choice, Kyle. We came together the next day and she was like, we're staying married. We're not declaring bankruptcy. We're not getting jobs. We're going to figure out our business. And so she got on planes, trains, and automobiles for the next 2 years. And we had access to wealthy mentors, thank God. And she said, I'm going to figure out how they think, what they do. And then she pointed her big finger at me and she's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to figure out how my thinking keeps creating broke. Because how could a CPA who used to tell Fortune 500 companies how to manage your finance department and a fairly successful financial advisor be broke? And I just said, I'm all in on changing. I'm not interested in changing. I'm committed like an Olympic athlete is with their sport. And I just said, I will be up every morning, crack of dawn, and I'm going to journal, visualize, image. I'm going to pull out every limiting belief and replace it. If you would have told me to stand on my head for an hour, if it was going to change my life, I was going to do it. And it didn't happen overnight, but it happened over time. And we had a jaw-dropping financial transformation. But I had a personal transformation that was pretty amazing. So that's kind of it.
Chris, I'd love for you to walk us through, like, because I think more people have probably had the oh crap moment in their head where they realize, like, I'm the issue. But then I don't think most people have any action that happens after that to result in change. Right. And so so you have this thought that night, you and your wife decide to make it work the next day, but then you had to actually take action. And so was there a blueprint that you followed that like taught you how to journal? Or did you just say, man, I'm gonna open up a book and just start writing in it? Like what did that look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing was, it's a couple things happened was I took 100% responsibility for the disaster that was my life.
Yeah.
So I realized that playing victim wasn't going to work. And people get offended by that word, but it's a very simple definition. Victim is blaming outside circumstances for the results in my life.
Right.
And we all do it. I still do it, but I have to watch it. And I can't create any change in my life unless I take 100% responsibility for all of it. So that's the first thing. That was the first time in my life I actually did that. The second thing I did was I realized that there were people in my life paying a tremendous price for me staying the same. There was a lot of pain going around. It's not like they were blaming me, but it was the connection, the prices that other people were paying for me insisting on staying the same. My wife, my kids, me, I was drinking a lot. My health sucked. My spirituality was whacked. I mean, it was too heavy of a price. And what I didn't do in that moment, Kyle, was beat myself up over that. I just was like, all right, dude, other people are paying a really heavy price for
Yeah.
me insisting on staying the same. And then the last thing was I actually connected, because I could do it pretty easily. My thinking is creating the life that I have.
Yeah.
And so if I want a different life, I have to think differently. So the first project, one of my chapters in the book is my coach said, you don't have a problem, you have a project. My first project was really tackling my money beliefs.
Okay.
And so I grabbed a journal, and I hired a coach for about 4.5 years. But that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, Kyle, is the problem it solves is stuck. And it literally anybody could pick it up and scan a table of contents and go, I'm stuck there. Oh, Chris was stuck there too.
Yeah.
What did he do to get unstuck? So this is, tens of thousands of dollars of studying this stuff and thousands of hours. That's why I wrote it, is to help people not have to do what I had to do. So they could just leverage what I did. But anyway, but the first thing I did is I wrote the word money down, and I wrote down everything I make up about that word.
And so what, like, I love when some of my episodes get to be about me personally, because I just think it's more real than just trying to do a canned interview. I've always struggled with, because I was a pastor for a long time. Right. And when you, unless you're a megachurch pastor, which is very few people, right? As a pastor, you kind of resign yourself to, like, I'm never going to be wealthy, because that's not what this calling is about. Now, right, my calling is different, or not, or looks different. And so I've always struggled with, like, man, what was I meant to have a lot? And so, like, this resonates so deeply with me personally. And so what were some of those statements that you were choosing to believe about money that were holding you back?
Yeah. I mean, I share all the biggies in the book. But it's, what happens is we get programmed around money at a young age, and then we never really check in on the validity of it all.
Yeah.
And so, and the world-class people, so you read Steve Siebold's quote at the beginning that he wrote the foreword of my book. He's got the longest running study of self-made millionaires and billionaires on the planet. And
wow.
And what he learned, Kyle, was they all had the same limiting beliefs growing up. But at some point, I was 37. At some point, they call BS on it, and they choose to upgrade their money beliefs.
Wow.
And it's like upgrading a cell phone. And so my coach was like, okay, let's write down, and you can do this with anything in your life. Anything in your life where you're not getting a result, there's you plus a thought, and you plus a thought equals a result. So what's empowering for me is, and there's no room for victim in this equation, right? It's you and a result, and then you're thinking. And so what's always given me a lot of confidence is, if I can change the thinking, I can change the result. It won't happen overnight.
Yeah.
But if I do the work's going to be worth it. And the work being worth it is a huge philosophy throughout my whole book. And so I had that going for me. So when I sat down and I said, money's hard to make. It's hard to keep. Like you just said, am I meant to? Right? My mom told me, money, that you either have it or you don't. Like, her belief was, you didn't really have a choice in it. It was someone else's choice. My dad said, rich people suck. They make money on the backs of poor people. And so, hard to make, hard to keep, right? I'm making money. Other people are suffering. Like, all this stuff I'm looking at, and I'm like going, who's paying the price for me hanging on to these?
Wow.
Way too heavy. So then I just said, all right, let's create some new ones. Making and saving big money is easy. That became one. Money is the scorecard of value that I'm creating for other people, which it is. I don't know how else you keep score in business.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm growing, my money is growing. Money's just an indicator. And then, and then one of my favorite quotes that changed my life, Kyle, and I got baptized in 2017. I mean, my spiritual path has been pronounced, but it was actually Billy Graham's quote. I found it. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Really?
And he said, once you get your attitude straight around money, it'll help straighten out every area of your life.
Wow.
He said
wow.
That, and I put that quote in the book. Once you get your attitude straight around money, it's going to help straighten out every area of your life.
Wow.
And he was totally spot on. That quote is as true for me as anybody.
So in this journey, Chris, you looked back and realized that like there were specific pillars that you could kind of look back and go, man, this is what happened here. And this is what happened here. And I love the way you broke it down in the book is so simplistic and easy. And you even say it in the beginning, right? That this isn't a book that you'll just read one time and then go put on a bookshelf. Like you will continue to come back to it, and you could almost jump around like one of those, like create your own adventure books, right? Where I might go, man, I don't know that I worry, but oof, I think I'm settling, and I can jump down into the don't settle part. And so in pillar one for you, get out of your own way. This is what I deal with every day, helping people be better at social media, getting in front of the camera. And so inside of pillar one for you, is there one where you feel like this is the holdup for most people?
Let me pull open my book.
I know there's so many different ones in here. So you can use your cheat sheet.
Yeah, everyone's like, you memorize all the chapters. I'm like, no, I haven't memorized all
I know.
the chapters.
I keep my PDF on my screen now when I'm doing interviews about it.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in here. Anyway,
there is a lot of good stuff in here.
I mean, I think I could probably tie a few of them together, right? Like,
okay.
Quit waiting. I think that's tremendously huge for people.
100%.
They wait. They're like, well, once I know more, then, right? Once this so it's once again, it's this victim thing of I need outside validation or external validation or a sign from God or whatever it is before I can move forward. It's funny.
So how do we, for the person listening or watching that is like, yep, I've got 4 ideas that have been in my head for 4 years, and I'm still combing through excuses as to why I'm not taking any action. What's the next step for them to get outside of the waiting?
Well, I mean, I think it's the awareness of, I mean, it's a couple things. I mean, my book is written in such a way of, there's 5 pillars, and the last pillar is kind of like the dream of what you want, right? And I actually tell people, stop and figure out the clarity of what it is that you want. Right? And that's a pretty beat up topic in personal growth and development.
Sure.
And it's one of those things people are like, yeah, I don't know what I want. And then they're like, well, at some point I'm going to know what I want, but I got to go chase the squirrel that just ran across the patio first. Right. And so the scheduling of time and knowing what you want is, and I'm very fortunate. I get mentored by some amazing people, but that's where they always start with me. What are you going for? What are you aiming for? What's the reasons? So that's one of the first things.
But if I could interject like a personal story here, like in this moment, I'm having my own realization of I've always tried to make my why about other people. Right. And so I've always said that like my purpose on this earth is to leave people better than I find them, which I wholeheartedly believe.
And you do.
And I hope I'm doing a good job of that, but it's always left me feeling very vague when if you were to pose the question, like, what do you want? I don't ever have a great answer for that, because all I know is I just want to help you be better.
Yeah.
But if that's all it is, then there's a lot of days that I wake up and I'm like, what is the best thing for me to do today? And so I'm already gaining clarity, like just reading through the first few pages of this for myself.
Yeah. Well, and that's always, that's always the battle. I mean, cause the story I tell in the book is we were making a move, and I got pulled into some pretty amazing mentoring in my company, and we got flown to New York, and it was Christmas time, and we're in this room with literally the legends of my business, and including in the front of the room is, the guy that's a freaking superstar, Ed Milet. He was in that room.
Yeah.
Mentoring me and 40 other guys that day. And we're talking about the how-tos of things, right? Because you're teaching people social media, how to do this, how to do that, how to do this, how to do that. And one of the main mentors who'd been in the company 10 years shorter than me, and he had tripled what I'd done.
Wow.
He kind of came in late, and he interrupted the meeting. And he's like, what are you guys talking about? Why are you talking about all this stuff, how-to stuff? He's like, I'm kicking your ass because the first time, ever since I came here, I've known what I wanted. I knew why I wanted it, and I could communicate it in under 90 seconds. That was clear. Y'all can't do that, so I'm going to continue to kick your ass. And he left the room. Wow. And that's when I was like, done. Time out. I've heard this 24 times. I'm over. My wife was with me. And we sat down, and I'm like, what do we want?
Wow.
She's like, I want to be free around money. I'm like, okay, how do we define it? She's like, well, we got to have this much in savings. We got to have this kind of net worth. We got to have this size of business. We got to do this, and this. And I'm like, why do we care? Why? She's like, I don't want to argue with you around money ever again. I'm like, I want to be a world-class freaking giver philanthropist. So scheduling the time and sitting your ass down and doing the hardest work on the planet, which is thinking. It's the hardest work.
Yeah.
And if you grab a journal and you're like, what do I really, 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 really want my life to look like? And you sit there and your ego's going to fight with you for about 10 minutes. And then Earl Nightingale calls it the vein of gold. Then you're going to tap that vein of gold, and you're going to start drilling into your subconscious. You don't type, you write. And you start coming up with stuff. And I was talking to a mentor yesterday, and he said, what's your top 25 dreams, Chris?
Whoa.
I was like, this guy's a multi-billionaire, 71. He's like, you want to see my dream list? Let's go through it. Massive dreamer. And I'm like, what are my top? So anyway, I came up with 13 yesterday, and
wow.
And so I'm gonna go back to all my team. Like, that's our training next Wednesday. I'm like, what are your top 25 dreams? Like, he's like, dude, you're dream flat. Like, you're flat. You're dream flat. I'm 71. I'm a multi-billionaire. I'm still dreaming. Anyway, I'm kind of went off in another tangent there, but that's the juice, man. Like, he's like, dude, your guys don't need to know how to do social media, right? They don't need to know how to. They got to have some freaking dreams.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like my 100%. Guys, they're like, well, how do I do this? And how do I sell this? And how do I do that? And it's so easy for me to go, yeah, that's right. Little comfort zone. We go into the mental masturbation of things. And
sure,
let's think through that. And then he's just like, dude, you know why that guy's kicking your ass in California? He's got a dream list. You don't. Anyway, that was fresh.
That's
top
so good.
25 dreams, dude. Top 25 dreams.
Yeah. I don't even know that I would have one.
Oh no.
Like this second that would come off my tongue without even thinking.
No.
So there's my homework.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I got it in my phone. And here's the other thing. Because he said that, and I was like, what are they? And I didn't give myself pressure because I don't know. I didn't beat myself up. So Siebold posts, the guy that we're talking about, he posts a video of his number one mentee that he coached speaking. Guy makes like $9 million a year speaking. Unbelievable.
Wow.
And this guy's got a studio where he does all his videos. And he's got like, you've seen Tony Robbins' screen.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like a mini version of that. And I was like,
wow,
that's a pretty cool dream.
That is a super cool dream.
So I just threw that down. But there's no way I would have done that.
Sure.
Unless he challenged me to do 25.
Oof, I'm taking that one too. I want that
Beautiful.
one.
Yeah, he's awesome.
It's so
he should be president of the United States.
Oh my gosh.
I love that guy. Still pouring into people.
Wow.
Still pouring
I love it.
People. Yeah.
So talk about still in pillar one. We may not even get out of pillar one before we're done with this episode. And that's fine. We might have to do like 5 parts to this.
Fired up.
But you talk about don't wrestle with your ego. Everyone I talk to, right? Everyone I work with, what they don't understand how to actually say out loud is their ego is really what's keeping them from creating more content, from putting themselves out there on video, right? We blame other things, but to me, that is truly what it is at the end of the day. And so I'm imagining for you, you're a CPA at the largest financial company in the world, right? You're having this success, but you know behind the scenes it's not working out for you. The wrestling that you had to have gone through with your ego had to have been insane. And so what did the realization of that look like? And then how would somebody begin to try to weaken their ego, remove their ego, however you'd say it?
Yeah, I mean, and I think it all kind of, so kind of just close the loop on that whole quit waiting thing. Like you might not need 25 dreams, but like, what's one of them? Like, okay,
sure,
fire my boss. Okay, great, fine. And you write down all the reasons, and then it's just like, okay, that's what I want. That's a 60,000 foot level, and then I just need to execute at the 5 foot level. What's the next thing I need to do? And clarity only happens from forward movement. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It only happens from forward movement. So just one step at a time, relax, chill the freak out, right? Like relax. And just take one small step, just move it, post one video, right? Just do something, right? Because when you start bumping up against things that are uncomfortable, your ego is not your amigo. And it's going to say, oh, Kyle, you're a dumbass. You look bad on camera. You this, you that, you whatever. And so the thing with your ego is you shouldn't be surprised when that's happening. It's natural.
Right.
But when you understand that it's holding you back from what you want, everybody knows that. And so for me, it's like, okay, like when I was doing my book launch and I was pushing out there, and you know what it's like, man, you're asking for favors, you're reaching out to people, you're selling, you're promoting yourself, right? That can be a little uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
Yeah. And my ego's like, the book sucks and nobody cares about you and all that.
Yeah.
But what I've done for years is when I get uncomfortable and that stuff starts firing, I actually start writing down what I'm making up about the situation. And then I'm like, okay, I need to move anyway, because it's really not this big mountain I need to climb. It's just literally the next step.
Yeah.
Because the body in motion stays in motion. Right. And just like, I like to work out. Right. And every time my ego's like, well, you could skip today, but that's not going to serve me. I'm like, okay, thanks for weighing in. I'm going to take the next step. I'm putting my shoes on. Right.
It's good.
For your guys, I'm going to post a video. I'm going to send this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make the small call. Body in motion stays in motion. And so I just have gotten really good at recognizing what my ego is. And it's insane.
You talk about in the ego section, use the judge your neighbor worksheet as a guide. Can you talk about like what the judge your neighbor worksheet is?
Yeah, we got a QR code in there, but you can Google it.
Yeah.
And this is more when a situation with another person triggers me.
Sure.
Right. And the situation in the book was, I was running kind of a nonprofit. I was helping them grow, and I'd gotten way off course with what they wanted. And the founders were like, "Hey man, we need to meet because like stuff's going awry." And I took it personally, right?
Mm.
Losers take things personally, as my
Yep.
mentor says.
Wow.
Losers take offense. But I did it. I got triggered. I have a program that's like, if you don't do what I tell you to do, then you're telling me that I don't matter. Totally crazy, right?
Yeah.
That was a $2,000 coaching session, right?
Oh my gosh.
But it's one of the best things I've ever found is
Yeah.
If I get triggered to I don't matter, then I start reacting, and it's usually not good. And so all this stuff was firing in me.
Wow.
And I became aware of it. And then I did the Judge the Neighbor worksheet, which you basically walk through and you write down all the judgments you have about them. You get super petty. And then I won't ruin the surprise for people, but at the end, there's 4 questions.
Okay.
That'll give you amazing awareness on it. And
I can't wait to do it.
Yeah. And what I realized was I was making it all about me.
Mm.
And I became aware. And if I would have reacted in the moment when they wanted to talk to me, I would have blown up those relationships.
Mm.
But then we met and I wrote down everything my ego was making up about it. Don't they know who I am? I'm this, I'm that. I'm better than they are. I know more than they do. I'm more successful than they. I mean, it was, dude, crazy, toxic stuff. And I wrote it down and I did that exercise and I came back to the journal like 5 days later. And I'm like, did somebody break into my journal and write this stuff down? I couldn't believe I wrote that stuff.
Wow.
And then I met with them and they're like, dude, you need to follow protocol. I'm like, totally get it. Sorry, man. You're right.
This is a random question, but what's the significance? Because you said it earlier, to like physically writing in a journal versus like somebody wanting to take notes on their phone, somebody wanting to take notes in an app, on their computer. Like I went and bought like a virtual journal, right? Like the Remarkable. So it feels like writing, but it's not, it's still in a device. It's not on paper. What's the significance for you for like physically putting pen to paper?
Yeah, that was from a mentor, and I think I looked it up a long time ago, but the things that, like, when you grab a pen and you write it, the things that have to fire internally, like the neural pathways and the synapses and all that stuff, the stuff that has to wire and fire, it's like thousands and thousands of things have to come together, where like typing is like there's very little that has to come together.
Okay.
And so what he taught me is like what flows through you sticks to you.
I like that.
Yeah. And for me, the journaling is taking what's in my mind and getting it on paper, at least for me, it's massively enlightening.
I love it. I'm thinking about abandoning my virtual journal and going back to pen and paper.
Yeah. I don't know if you need to abandon it completely, but I think when, like if you want to tackle money as a project, I think there is a lot of power of seeing it in your own handwriting, and it's real and it's on paper, and and then, and one of my gifts, I don't know if my kids care or not, but I want to, I want this stuff to get handed to them for generations.
Yeah. I've thought about that. And so I think that's a big deal to me too. Chris, because obviously we're not going to get all the way through the book, and we're not getting anywhere near through the book in one session. And so I might have to beg you to come on multiple times.
Yeah. You don't need to beg me. I'm there. Whenever
Okay,
you wanna do
good.
it. Whenever you want to do it.
What
No big.
what I want to, because I try to keep episodes, 30-ish minutes,
Oh,
40 minutes max.
sure.
And so where I want to kind of land the plane for this episode is like in your story, right? You have this incredible journey that sadly you got to come out the other side of. And for a lot of people, they don't. They never make it for a multitude of reasons. When you look back at y'all's story, what are you most proud of?
Yeah, I mean, it's that I stuck with it, man. That I didn't yeah, and the chapter on acknowledgement, I always get tears when I think about it, but it was, it was the moment where like I actually told myself good job.
Mm.
Because I'd never done that. I'd never given myself credit. I'd gotten plenty of love from other people and like acknowledgement at, but it was yeah, I mean, it was just I mean, the big theme in the book is it will be worth it. And I think a lot of people, I think that's probably one of the things that got me through is I knew that whatever I was going through, it was eventually going to pay off. Like I never questioned that. And I think a lot of people are like, God, what if I put in all this work and it doesn't work out?
Mm.
And so I think it doesn't work out for people because you don't get what you hope for, you get what you expect. And I was expecting it to work out, and I was willing to do whatever it took. It's amazing today. I was getting in the car to go to a lunch appointment with a client, and I got this image, my oldest, when shit was going down, and he lived in Florida, and I took him to kindergarten for the first time. And I just got this, he had this little goofy hat on, and he waved at me, and he went into the building. And I hadn't seen him in months, right? Because we were in such a, he's living with his mom, and it just, her and I weren't doing well. And I remember dropping off at kindergarten and just bawling my ass off, like just unbelievable. And then he handed in his last school assignment ever yesterday. And I called him, he goes to Vanderbilt. He's already software engineer. He's a stud. He's unbelievable. And I just called him, and it just, in that moment, I'm like, oh man, I'm so grateful that I didn't quit, that I persisted, because the blessings that have happened to me and happened to my kids has just been amazing. And it wouldn't have happened if I would have bailed. Man, and it would have been, my biggest fear is not the fear of failure, it's the fear of regret. That's my biggest fear.
Man, that's powerful. I love this. Chris, how do people go find your book? How do they follow you so that they can get more of you in their life?
Yeah, the website's chrisfelton.me. Best way to connect with me. I sent out a week, it's like a 4-minute video. It's called Thank God It's Monday. My mindset's on Monday had to change if I was going to change my life. I have my, probably by the time this airs, my new workshop, the deep dive in the book will be out. I'm most excited about that. So
okay, awesome. We will link to that when this episode airs. Chris, I can't thank you enough, man. Thank you for, in all your busyness, giving time for this. I appreciate you.
Yeah, no, dude. Thanks for having me on. Grateful, man. You're a total stud, and appreciate you, and grateful that we met. Your blessing.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Guys, you heard it here first. I'm a stud, and you're listening to a really cool podcast. So tune in next week when this stud interviews another cool person with an even cooler story. See you guys.